Good day. I'm Adam Firecat, back at the Scorpion Lab. Little known factoid about myself, I ran for mayor back in 2008. I had just come from losing about everything someone could lose in terms of the woman I was with for a long time, off and on again. She passed away. I lost my mode of transportation, my job, and my home, all kind of one lump sum deal there. I found the Fight Club saying of when you lose everything, you're free to do anything, or something like that. And that was pretty true to me, and that was fine, because it helped me kind of realize ultimately a lot of prisons that we make for ourselves in terms of what we limit ourselves from doing, mainly because we've got sort of comfortable in where we're at. But I do want to talk about the experience. So I ran, and it's probably as a result of when I lost my home, it was one of the last straws. I've always had sort of a critical view of certain political issues, but that's neither here nor there. We all have them, right? I think a difference is that there's people who love to do what we call the coffee shop philosopher, who solves all the world's problems from the coffee shop with their friends and the discussions. Obviously, we always solve the problem by the end of it. We're going to put the world at ease. Of course, it never does happen that way. If you want to really enact change, at least as far as I can tell, you want to do it from within the system if you can. Right? The outside of the system, that becomes a little more difficult. So if I wanted truly the changes I was looking for, I felt it that I would involve myself in running for mayor to at least bring the issues to light. Because to be honest, I had no chance in hell, and that's fine. I knew going in it was going to be a difficult, bumpy ride, and probably if you believed in odds, I don't believe in free will. Another time for that discussion. But it is I thought that the odds, if such a thing exists, were very low, but they're still there. It's not a zero number, or it's a non-zero number, we'll say. So I lost the home we live in because of how many cars we had in a driveway. There was an ordinance that passed, and the landlord at the time was just trying to resell the home and found it easier to evict us by virtue of saying we violated an ordinance and thus they needed to remove us, even though it was easily rectified. But it was an absurd ordinance. It was, if you have more than 4 cars in your driveway, you were in violation of the ordinance. And this was more about aesthetics. At any rate, it was one of my driving forces, as aesthetics is really just a personal choice. If it doesn't physically harm you, what do you care? An argument, it's back and forth. There's a multitude of ways to kind of look at that thing. Still, it got me involved, because after losing the home, after losing everything else simultaneously, I said that was it. That's the last straw. And I'm going to take a stand in a way no one expected. I ran for office. People talk about changing the system. I actively like to think I went out and tried to do it. And even if I were to fail, I would at least bring these issues to more of a public discussion. And I did. I got my name in there. And people knew me a long time ago from Village Inn as being this busser that bust really fast and stuff like that, and competitions. It's a strange story that I'll have to tell you another time as well. But I ran, and when I came on the scene, there were 2 different papers. These are 3 different papers. These days they're all consolidated into one. The Northwest Arkansas Gazette is now the formal paper that is comprised of the Northwest Arkansas Times and the Morning News and the Gazette, which the Gazette absorbed them as papers are wont to do in the modern age with the age of the internet. papers kind of diminished. And they only, like the Times only reported 3 people running while the morning news reported 4. And I found it very offsetting that they knew, because like they were accurately checking each time to see who was running, but I wasn't considered a real candidate. So there were only 4 people on the ballot when they kept reporting it as 3. But they had to acknowledge me whenever I arrived at the stump speech in front of a lot of people. So at that point in time, the numbers got changed. Now, when I got in, I was probably, I think I was the youngest person that ever ran for mayor for about 4 days. And then Sammy Sutton also entered the race. Sammy Sutton was 19 at the time. I was like, man, I wanted to hold a rep. Who cares, right? Really good kid too. She was. I remember at 19, I was nothing but a punk little kid. She had more drive, smarter than I was at that time, definitely. It took a lot of growing up before I got to where I was currently. But what we had was Walt Eilers, Lionel Jordan, Steve Clark, myself. Sammy entered the race, and then Dan decided to enter the race again. Dan had said he was going to remove himself from the mayoral race, and then he was going to support Steve Clark. But then after he got Steve involved in the race, then decided he wanted to run again anyway. Steve is kind of like, come on, man, really? It's kind of, I don't know if to say it's a crappy thing to do. Humans do what they do, right? I don't think it was malicious, but I think ultimately Dan wanted to do it again, decided to try again. So 6 of us were running, 5 guys, 1 woman. And though we had a lot of disagreements on a lot of these issues, we were pretty nice about a lot of it, in terms of like each other. I think Dan and Lionel had bumped heads a lot, but these are more issue-based things. It's not like we're cursing each other out. It's not like we're talking shit about each other. And that was important because let's say you go to a job interview and the best thing that you have to offer is how crappy the other applicants are. You sound unprofessional. Apparently, unless you're running for state office and federal office, and in that case, this is the way to kind of do it, is rip on the other candidates. How unprofessional it sounds to me when people do it on the nationwide scale, on the statewide scale. But that's just the nature of the game. It's a popularity contest at that level. With us, it can be a popularity contest depending on how you want to play your game, but usually, what I found was when we ran, we were pretty cool. It was the voters that were angry at each other and at us. If you're not their candidate, well, you're the bad guy, you're the enemy. And that was weird, man. You don't have to agree with this. We're not bad people just because we ran and we're not your guy. But you got to understand, people don't kind of think of it that way. You're in opposition to good things. You're obviously a not a moral person if you don't carry their point of view. I don't respect you and your point of view. You didn't think about this, as if we hadn't considered things. And sometimes it's true that we don't consider every little thing at that moment and don't share your point of view. I don't think that makes us immoral or bad. And I don't think any of us saw it that way while we were running. And it was pretty cool. I remember we had a lot of debates and forums, and through it all, we were pretty civilized. I mean, we got to start hearing each other's speeches so much I could cite all of their speeches, and they could probably remember what I said pretty accurately, because it just kind of carried from multiple forums and discussions, and people start making your schedule for you that you've never met before, from the Realtors Association, the fire department / police department, when they want to do their interview for each candidate. They set it up and they tell you, you're going to be here at this time, this is what we got you scheduled for. Like, yeah, but I can't make that date. Yeah, well, that's when we got your schedule, man. And like, what are you going to do? Not show up because you're the candidate that didn't? Well, I'll keep that right in mind. They can do this around the election, but it doesn't fly like almost in any other situation at any other time with anybody. If you're going to try that with someone who's already elected, it's going to go the other direction. I promise you. There's also other people who like politely asked, say, we were thinking about having this forum here, and we have we have this plan for this time. What do you think about that? Well, I don't think I can make it. Oh, but we already scheduled it though. Oh, I guess I'll look into being there then, won't I? Humans. So I do hit a lot of these forums, and one of the ones I think we did, it was just four of us that arrived at this one, was the Republican meeting. I forget, there's a Republican Party meeting or something like that. Now, this is a nonpartisan position, but they still invite us anyway. The mayoral candidates from not just Fayetteville, but they invite the mayoral candidates from Springdale to this thing. Here was the interesting part about that one. It was myself, Sammy, Steve Clark, and Dan Cootie, and we were all hanging out there. I think Dan was at a different table. Steve, myself, and Sammy were at one, and there was the 6 mayoral candidates from Springdale, and they were almost a mirror image universe of ourselves, in that they had 5 guys and 1 woman too. I think one of the guys even had a goatee. Can't make this up. They took turns coming to all making their rounds with us. We were just kind of hanging out. They made their rounds with us, but like in a couple of instances, these guys sat down. They started talking crap about the other candidates who were in the same room, and then they would leave, and then the next one would come up and do that. And I know Sammy and I were like, "What the hell?" And I remember Steve Clark was like, "Yeah, it's a thing." And we didn't even have to like ask specific questions about what is this. He knew what we were thinking the moment we opened our mouth about that. So that was kind of weird, but we have a picture from all 4 of us at that one. We leave. I think one of my favorite. It's one of the final meetings that we have with I think it was a gated community wanted to do an interview with each of the candidates. Now, I'm not one for gated communities because I'm more of the libertarian idea of government, but they are who they are. They asked us there, and all 6 of us are in a room in a church building, and so we're in one of their classrooms until they're going to call each of us individually. While we're sitting there, I know Dan and Lionel always bump heads about what they think and why they think these things are more appropriate than not, and whatever. We're bored, and there's this stack of paper, blank sheets there, and on the table for some reason. And I remember Sammy. I think she started taking them and tearing up pieces of them and tossed them at 1 or 2 of us, and hit me with one. So I'm tossing one back, and then I toss one. I think I forget if I hit Walt Eilers with one or not. And then everyone just kind of doing that. And so we're all taking pieces of paper. You can imagine there's these adults that are running for office as mayor. And we're all now interested in wadding up pieces of paper and throwing them at each other. And we do. We're it's the most absurd thing. And as much as we might disagree about policy and ideology and within politics, we are at heart decent people, and that was really cool, man. Because the next thing that happened was the guy come to get the first person, comes in, okay, who wants to be, and then he sees all these paper wads all around, and we act like we didn't do it. We're all like it wasn't happening, and he knew it happened, and we knew that he knew what we had just done, but he wasn't even going to question it. Like, okay, and I think he took Dan first or Lionel, one of the two. But that's really cool, man. I remember I started out angry at a lot of things, but what it ended was that in a runoff, it was going to be Lionel Jordan and Dan Coody. A lot of people thought it would be Dan Coody and Steve Clark, which would have been interesting because I remember Dan got Steve into the race in the first place. So that would have been something more of a, I don't know. It would have wrapped up an interesting plot twist there. Still, I remember it was going to be Lionel Jordan and Dan Coody in their runoff debate, and all of us arrived. So there was all six of us. Sammy Sutton really wanted a picture of all of us, and gathered, got like coaxed us all up there. Come on, guys, come on, and got us all up. And so we have a picture of all six of us. I think Lionel is at one end and Dan is at another, and the rest of us are all in between. And I'm doing a peace sign in the middle of it, but it was unique in that, you know, her mother took pictures and a bunch of people got in on that picture. Like that was really cool to see the six candidates having run for mayor, and now the two runoffs are there. And I'm glad she did. It was really cool of her to work on that, getting that done, to try to capture a memory. Because I get to look at it now. It's on my Facebooks, and I remember how much I appreciated that time and learning a lot from it. It was one of the best experiences out there for somebody who came in angry about every little thing in the political spectrum, thinking he needed to take it out on the politicians that were, and he's going to change the system because he thinks they are just idiots, or they're incapable, like they haven't thought about these issues, or they don't take a broad perspective about it. They're just all about themselves. I found myself having to re-review what I thought I knew. I didn't know as much as I thought about people and how they act and why they act that way. And as much as I guess in politics and in people bumping heads in those offices and whatnot, I don't think Fayetteville suffered so much of that, given what we experienced with the Springdalian candidates, definitely. And I'm proud to have run with the other five. We in the disagreements, that doesn't mean in the end that I think they're bad people because they got that position I wanted or anything. They were unique and brought something good to that race, and I'll be ever grateful that it was them. I'm sure I could have had a crappy experience with people who are a little less cool about it. So to Steve Clark, to Lionel Jordan, to Dan Coody, to Walt Eilers, and to Sammy Sutton, thank you. And thank you for joining me.